Hey, and I'm Ryan with VetSocial Voices, and we're actually coming to you a little bit different. We're live from VetFest in Atlanta, where Henry Bond, my co-founder for Vet Social Summit, and I took the stage, and we talked about the awesome event that's upcoming 12 and 13 September, virtually everywhere. That is the VetSocial 25, and you can find that and register today at www.veterансocialsummit.com. I'm really excited about this event. We're bringing together over 70 dynamic military community Avengers with over 1,000 plus attendees anticipated across 7 virtual stages. Well, anyways, enough about me. I'm going to actually bring on not only one of our sponsors, but one of our speakers. And welcome to the show, Nathan. I'm very excited to have you here today. And why are you here? What's your
Yeah,
deal, man?
it's a good question. Like, especially like in relation to like why am I on this call with you? It's because I see what you're doing in the veteran community. Like I see what you're doing for our people, and and it's necessary. And I've been learning that more and more. You know what I mean? Because like for me, the transition was extremely difficult. And so without, I don't want to dive too deep there. I mean, we can later, but like we need more people doing what you are doing. And that's why I'm here because I see what you're doing. I want to be a part of it. I want to support it. I want to help our people know that they don't have to go through the transition. They don't have to go through the experiences that they have. They don't have to do it all alone. Like we actually have us here and I want to be a part of what you're doing. So yeah.
Amen. And we are really hoping, we, meaning quite a few of us, we've talked, and we're really hoping that you're going to apply for the IVMF Ambassador Program this upcoming year. I think you would add some tremendous value to it, and you already just proved it right there. So why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself? Who are you? Where do you live? Now, you don't have to give us your street address, but kind of what's your deal?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And it's always interesting when people ask me to tell them about me because, like, it's like, where do I start? But I guess I'll just keep it kind of short, right? Active Army for 11 years, wrapped up my career out here at Fort Carson with 10 Special Forces Group and just stuck around. So I'm in Colorado Springs, right? And after getting out, like a lot of us, I didn't really know what I was going to do. I spent a whole 6 months, like, doing not a lot of anything and just trying to figure out, like, hey, who am I? Who am I? Because our identity, everything that we had created while we were in the military, it's just all gone. Like once you're out, it's like, hey, good job, but it's all kind of pretend. And I say that not entirely in sincerity because there's obviously I care about the things that I've done in the military and there's credit there, but your identity is no longer that. The things that define you don't define you anymore. And so after getting out, spent some time trying to sort that out, actually some years, if I'm being entirely honest. But I needed to start making money. So I went back down range on a special operations joint task force, spent some time in Afghanistan, ended up coming back stateside, started training our military, right? I just stayed in the lane that I knew, preparing them for near peer conflicts. So just shifting focus from Iraq and Afghanistan to China, Russia type threats. I did that for a period. Then I was asked to develop and facilitate the senior leader courses for the Space Force. So as we stood up the newest branch of our military, I was kind of on the ground floor, which is pretty good. It's pretty awesome. There's only been a few times in history where somebody's had the ability to be there. And so it was a unique opportunity. And definitely for me, I was an enlisted soldier. So it was like a new environment. and it was a
That's
good time.
wild.
Yeah, dude, it was wild. But we got those programs off the ground. And then I went to work at one of our combatant commands in the J35, writing the campaign order, just outlining to the branches of the military how we're going to execute the national strategy. And from there, I went to work at a company called Deloitte. And so that Deloitte was a great company. And honestly, like while I was working for them, I'd be like, man, I'll either work for Deloitte or for myself. And I ultimately decided for myself was the better option. And so I left Deloitte and I started in financial services. Building a brokerage and agency here. And now I run a team of about 200 associates across the country. And we're making a major impact in the way of education and helping people know and understand how money works, how money grows, and how we're taxed on that growth and what we can do to actually strategize to get to where we want to be financially. And so just a little bit of me in a nutshell, man.
Wow. There's a lot to unpack there, and definitely want to talk a little bit more about the financial education literacy, especially for our veteran community. But you hit on it, and so since you brought it up, uh, let's talk just a little bit more about the military transition. It's tough, and one of the big things that you brought up is that as we make this transition, we're losing our identity. So what I always tell people is once you've crossed over, there is a community of veterans, a veteran community that does want to unite. They want to grow, empower, and elevate you. But with that all being said, it sounds beautiful. It sounds like a rainbow with a unicorn and a cat riding it. Tell us a little bit about your secret to success, or what you think the secret sauce is to transitioning for those that are out there listening to this and they're like, I don't know how to do this. How am I ever going to survive out there?
Yeah, that's the answer to that question is freaking loaded. And
It
so,
is.
we're going to go on a trip. I want to take you down a trip with me in my trail of thought to share with the answer to that question. Cause it kind of started recently, you know what I mean? Like, again, getting out of the military was one of the hardest things that I've ever done. And I didn't expect that because I had done some difficult things in my lifetime. Up to and including changing my identity. But usually it happens over a period of time. Like I know for me, when I think back, like the transitions that I've had and shaping who I was to who I am or who I want to be, there was a lot of time there that I had time to develop into that. Leaving the military, there's not, at least for me, there wasn't that time. And in most cases, there's not that time. And so it's like a drastic, immediate change from who you had been, who you had created, the identity that you've lived into, to now what's next. And so like, I just now, to your point, recently, I've been out for 8 years. I got out in 2017. I hit 8 years in March. And just recently have I started really kind of locking back in with the veteran community. And so I was actually at an event in Las Vegas earlier this year. I was talking to a Marine Corps veteran, 24-year Marine Corps veteran, and we were sharing a little bit about this topic. And he mentioned that statistically, people get out of the military and they don't lock back in with the community for 8 years. And the reason I wanted to share with you this trail of thought is because we don't have to. We don't have to wait 8 years. And I don't know why that is, because I haven't given enough analysis to it. But at the forefront of my brain, I'm thinking like maybe when we get out, especially if you have somebody who did a couple of years, did 2, 3, 4 years, maybe they don't feel worthy to lock in with people who did 10 to 20 years. Or maybe the people who did a long time, maybe they feel like they can't relate. I don't know what it is, but it's something that I've been thinking about quite a bit recently, because we go through this transition, one of the most difficult things that we'll go through in reshaping our identity, and we do it solo. We go and we do it by ourselves instead of locking in with the people that we locked in with to do some of the most difficult things that we had done ever in our lives. And it's crazy to me. And it's been, like I said, I've been thinking about it a lot. That's why it's coming out the way that it's coming out right now, because this is a recent train of thought. And I'm like, what can we do to fix that? Now, it just so happens in the past few years, I've been focused a lot on personal development. And one of the things that really latched on to me there is kind of what we're talking about, is shaping your identity. Right? Because we have the pen to the paper that is our life. Like we are writing the book. We are writing the story. We're the ones who are doing this, and we're doing it live and living color. And so when we talk about our identity, well, what shapes our identity? For me, there's 4 major pillars. I'm actually writing a book about this stuff, and don't clown me on that, right? I didn't want to be one of the dudes who just gets out and write a book. It's not about my military experience. It's about things that I think are more important than that. And it is shaping your identity. And so there are 4 major pillars that I think make up our identity. The first is your associations, right? So who you spend the most time with shapes who you believe you are, right? And so when we get out of the military, we lose a lot of our associations, not because the people that we served with don't care and don't love us, but their op tempo didn't slow down just because we got out. They're still doing all the things that they were doing. But then we have our habits. Our habits very literally shape who we believe we are. And when we get out of the military, our habits drastically change. For most of us, we don't wake up in the morning and go work out and stand in a formation by ourselves in front of our house and salute the flag. Like, we don't do those things anymore, right? You don't stand out there. Maybe you're saying the Soldier's Creed or the Ranger Creed or the NCO Creed, whatever it is. Like, we're not doing that anymore. So the habits that shaped our identity, they're no longer there. Then our affirmations, the things that we tell ourselves about ourselves, right? What you tell you about you shapes who you believe you are. And so again, most of us aren't waking up and reciting the creed. So it's like, who are we now? Who are we becoming? And where am I going? I know the Ranger Creed is very important to me, right? It shapes how I live in a lot of ways. And so again, leaving some of that environment, who am I now? And then the last one, and this one, is faith. right? And for me, not everybody believes in God. That's okay. I don't alienate anybody because they don't, and I don't want anybody to alienate me because I do. But I believe in God. And so that last faith pillar is like, who does God say I am? And if you don't believe in God, who does your higher power, what does your higher purpose say about you and who you are? Because we don't need to go and validate something that's already been validated by the creator. And so these 4 things are the things that I think shape your identity. And again, moving out of the military, we lose sight of a lot of that. And so learning how to adjust those areas accordingly to be in alignment with who you want to become, I think that's essential. But here's the thing. When we do start changing or adjusting, when we do start living into a newer, better version of ourselves, our internal thermostat, and even the people around us, if we don't have the right people around us, it'll try to cool us down. It'll try to keep us locked in. It'll start to get you and make you enter into a drift, right? So you start falling out of alignment from where it is you want to go. And so it's essential that we identify that as fast as possible, because some people, they drift for years. Some people drift for months. Some people drift for weeks. The most important thing we can do is identify that drift and get out of it as fast as possible, right? And then the way that we get out of it, I think it changes for each individual, but you've got to have, and what I've learned is you've got to have an anti-drift formula. And so again, this is a long way to answer your question, but what can we do for transitioning service members, or like, what can I share about the transition? Hey, figure out who you want to be, and then start adjusting your associations, habits, affirmations, and your faith to be in alignment with who that is. And then as you start moving in that direction, expect the world to try to cool you down. Expect for things to try to keep you in the box that they put you in, and realize that that box wasn't meant for you and that you don't need to be there. And be clear on what you can do to stay in alignment with who you want to be, not who everybody else thinks you should be.
Oh my goodness. You just dropped, there's a lot to unpack there again, but you just dropped some new value on us for sure. And a lot of this is mindset. So I'm going to shift over now, and it's going to be a big shift from what you were just talking about. Why don't we talk a little bit about what are you doing now that you've made this shift? You have this anti-drift formula. What are you doing in the entrepreneurial space? What are your projects going on right now, Nathan?
Yo, that's a loaded question too, because like I'm figured out. Right. So like, there's my financial services, team that I'm running there. We got, like I said, like 200 associates. We're growing pretty rapidly. We're always looking for ethically driven professionals, but in this space, we're changing the way that finance is thought about in this country, right? And so like, I don't want to state, because there's other things that I'm doing that I want to talk about, but I think this is important because there is no financial education in the United States. I mean, I'm talking about, I got people on my team with doctorates in economics and finance that are learning things here that they probably should have learned in the schoolroom, in the education that they paid so much money for. But there is no real financial education in this country. And so like, that's the core of what we do. We educate folks. We help people know and understand, again, how money works, how money grows, how we're taxed on that growth. What can we do to preserve everything that we build during our working lives? How can we actually be in a position to retire comfortably? How can we achieve what we want to financially? We educate that, and then we have the licensing to provide those resources to the people that we serve, right? Whether it's, securities products, insurance products, estate planning, so trust, things of that, like whatever it is, we designed what we do to bring all the pieces together rather than just looking at one side of the industry and staying locked in there. And so that was the intent. That's what I'm doing in the finance space. A lot of coaching, a lot of mentorship, a lot of training and development to build leaders, because I know that the change that we want to have and the change that we're working towards can't be done alone. Success is a team sport. Now, outside of what I'm doing in the space of finance, I've started a lot more. Again, personal development has been huge for me over the past few years. And so I've recently started with speaking engagements, and I say recently, I've been doing it for a couple of years now, but primarily to people within my space, other professionals who have asked me to help coach, guide, and train their teams based on the successes that I've had in this space. And so I've been doing a lot of speaking engagements here, but I'm starting to branch out more into speaking to a broader audience, not just as it relates to success in this industry. So that's something that I'm doing. And then I'm also, interestingly enough, I picked up a master certified professional coach designation. And so I'm working in the space of coaching and again, sharing the successes, sharing my knowledge and experiences to the benefit of others. But I say that, and that's not necessarily what coaching is. Coaching is through curiosity, identifying what success looks like for the coachee and their path to get there, because it's entirely different. What it looks like for somebody, it doesn't look the same way for somebody else. And what my path for success in my brain may be, doesn't mean that's what it is for, you know, the client that I'm working with. And so I'm really diving into that a lot. I appreciate the opportunity to do that and guide people again through curiosity, based on the experiences, you know, that I've had with not only going through certification to become a coach, but in leveraging and working with coaches myself and personally. So I'm also writing a book. And like I said, which interestingly enough, like while we've been sitting here, I've been getting messages, you know, from the folks that I'm working with on that one. And I got to do some proofreading and doing things that, like, I got to do my least favorite part now. You know?
Exactly. That's awesome. Anything else? I mean, I think you got your plate filled with a lot of different things for sure.
Yeah. No, I mean, and you brought up the IVMF, you know, ambassador. I actually applied to that this morning. I met with one of the local dudes and we sat down, and you're right. I do have a full plate. And it's a blessing and a curse, I guess, but I'm driven. I got gas in the tank and there are things that I want to accomplish. And I think that there's an impact that I can have. And that's what I want to do. You know what I mean? Because I feel like everything that I've done and been through, like the life that I've lived, the experiences that I've had, it can't all have just been for me. Like it can't have just been for me. Like this isn't just to benefit Nathan. I didn't just go through the things that I did to know the things that I know. Like it's not just for me. And so my goal and what motivates me, what drives me, what makes me get out of bed is to share my knowledge and experiences to the benefit of others. Like to make my life worth it. The resources that I've developed, the network that I have, the relationships that I've built, the knowledge that, like, it's all to just share so that people can freaking take it and hopefully do freaking better than me. Because here's the thing about, and I'm sorry, I just keep rambling.
Amen. No, go for it.
You're asking some thought-provoking questions, and every single person that I interact and engage with, whether I'm coaching them on my team professionally, I'm working with them in the client space in any capacity, like whatever it looks like, they all have a component that I will never have. I can give them all of my knowledge. I can give them all of my resources. I can give them everything I have to give, but they have a component that I will never have, and that is themselves. And so in my brain, they should be able to take everything that I have to offer and go do better infinitely. Like go take it and freaking run with it, because you've got one plus that I won't have. And so that's what I do in some way, shape, or form.
That's beautiful. And so let's round this out and start maybe end where we should have probably started, which is, why don't you tell us a little bit about your military career and maybe how that's impacted you as a vetrepreneur?
Yeah. No, man, the military, it's kind of nuts because I always said I would never join the Army. Like growing up, I always said I'd never join the military. And I ended up joining. There was a lot of stuff going on in my personal life. I don't know how much I want to dive into on this call. But there was a lot of things personally happening. And people around me going to prison, just things were happening. Life was I had left home at 14. There was just a lot going on in my life. And so I ended up joining the military, even though I said I wasn't gonna. And I started out as an artilleryman down in good old Fort Sill, Oklahoma. So shout out to all the Redlegs who may be listening to this. I love my roots, right? I love being a Red. I love how I started. I mean, it's part of what shaped me into who I am. And so I started at Fort Sill, was stationed there for a while, deployed, to Iraq with them, came back, reclassed because I got tired of scraping rocket exhaust off the back of an M270 Alpha 1. And so we reclassified to be an electronic warfare specialist because at the time, that was like the only thing that was available to leave, 13 Mike land. So I went and became an electronic warfare specialist. Which was a unique shift, right? And part of me at the time, part of the reason I drove that direction too is because I wanted to slow down. I had just got married. I'm like, shooting rockets isn't going to do anything for me outside of the military, but maybe electronic warfare will. And so I was like, I'm going to slow down a little bit and just start capitalizing on the opportunity that I have to be educated by the United States military. Little did I know that everything was going to speed up from there. So I after reclassification, I was assigned to the 173rd Airborne Brigade. Man, shout out to all the Sky Soldiers on the call. Like, I'm getting goosebumps. Got a warm spot in my heart for Sky Soldiers, man. The 173rd Airborne Brigade, probably the best group of warfighters on the planet. I can prove it mathematically, but we're not going to dive into that. Now, I went out to the herd, went to Afghanistan with them. And it was funny when I got there, I saw these people running around with wings and a tab. And I'm like, yo, I'm gonna go get me some wings and a tab. And like some of the guys were kind of clowning. They were like, you're an electronic warfare specialist. They're not going to send you to Ranger School in an infantry brigade. Like, you're not going to take one of those slots. Lo and behold, they sure did. They sure did. I went downrange, did some good stuff, came back, did some good stuff, and apparently earned my slot. Right. And I did some good things in the military, man. I went through a lot of different courses, picked up a lot of different education, and really paved the way for a good career. After leaving the 173rd, I came out to 10th Group, and I continued that trajectory. Right. I had done, again, a lot of special qualifications and additional skills that I picked up along the way. And I'm going to get a little vulnerable because I'm going to tell you something that I don't usually just pop out with all the time, but somebody's going to relate to what I'm saying. While I was in the military, while I was in the 173rd Airborne Brigade, I was sleeping in my car drunk. You know what I mean? I didn't get a DUI, but I got a field grade Article 15. And later on, a few years after the fact, that came back to kind of haunt me. And I got back from the senior leaders course, and I graduated number 2 at the top of the class. When I was the only staff sergeant there, a bunch of sergeants first class. I always showed out, man. Like every class that I went to, I always showed out. And so anyway, I get back and I get notified that I'd be considered for QMP, that I'd be involuntarily separated. And I told him, I was like, hey, don't worry. This Article 15 that I have, the imposing commander set it aside on the basis of a clear injustice, meaning it's required to be removed from my record. Right. And so the JAG officer was in the room with us because at group, we got JAG in a battalion level. And so he's saying like, yeah, dude, it's not a matter of if they remove it. It's a matter of when they have to. We had it in black and white. And I remember the commander and sergeant major, and he's like, we're still going to put together a solid rebuttal for you. Don't worry about this. We got your back. And they did. I mean, the character references that I got from these men, as we outlined my career on paper, it was kind of remarkable. Just looking at what I had accomplished. I was about 10 years in, looking at the things that I had done. It was kind of remarkable, from the NCOERs, to the school evaluation, the things. I was like, man, dude, this is solid. And so we submitted this rebuttal, and it came back a few months later that like, hey, basically I was going to be involuntarily separated. And we were like, you can't do that because according to Army regulation, this is required to be removed from my record. And the QMP board was like, hey, guess what? That's not our lane. You've got to appeal to the Army Board of Correction for military records. And so we did. And they said it was going to take about a year. I only had a few months like that. I don't remember this is 8 years ago. I don't remember the exact time frame, but it was like I had till November, and that was not within the 12-month span that the ABCMR came back with. And so I had to submit an exception of policy request like every 30 to 60 days as we continue to wait for adjudication on my records. Again, in the meantime, I had the utmost support from my entire organization. Every commander, every senior enlisted, advisor, every person that I work with, they were all the way on board with supporting my career, however it played out. And I just got to shout out. I just got to shout that out, man, because I know not everybody has that. But my unit was all the way on board with supporting my continued service and or my separation. And so anyway, February 27th of 2017, I found out, I heard back from the ABCMR. They said I did not provide enough evidence that the Article 15 was unjust, even though we had an addendum from the imposing commander saying that it was unjust. And so I had till March 1st, I had 3 days to get out of the Army. It was kind of nuts. It was very fast. And to make a long story short, we made it happen. And that was my military career. And it hit hard because I still had goals. I was getting ready to go do some things that year that I've been working towards. There's a lot of things that I wanted to work to and accomplish. And, life just had a different path for me. And guess what? Hindsight being 2020, I wouldn't be married to the beautiful woman that I'm married to now. I wouldn't have the kids that I have. I wouldn't have the success that I have. I'd be in an entirely different space and instead kicking that can down the field of transition and becoming the best version of myself. So as much as it stings a little bit, I'm very grateful for where I am in life and what we've been able to do.
Wow, that is an amazing story. And I want to thank you, Nathan, for joining us. We're definitely going to have you come back because we really didn't unpack your full entrepreneurial journey, which, we just did a real 40,000 foot view of everything. So definitely want to have you come back. I'm really excited. You're going to be at the VetSocial 25 speaking. on 12 and 13 September. So excited about that, having you there, and want to thank you also for being one of our strategic partners, our collaborators, and helping us to power the Vet Social 25, which is just tremendous and continues to speak to what you're trying to do in the veteran community and giving back. So with that, I'm kicking you off the stage and saying, giving you the salute. And it's been a pleasure talking to you as always. All right. Wow. Tremendous value added there. And if you're listening to this on Spotify or anywhere else you might catch this, I'm telling you, he just dropped some major value there. Anyways, we're definitely going to have them come back. You can find them at Vet Social on 12 and 13 September, which you can register for free right now at www.veteransocialsummit.com. And until next time, start climbing higher.